All right, folks, welcome on back here for another fantastic edition of our weekly workshop, Traders Talk. I got Monday, September 15th, the odds of September. Great to have Albert, Anna, Lawrence, Nabil, Mike, Sid. You got Chuck, Bill, all of us just rejoining us back here inside our live trading room. If you're on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, etc., Willy Wonka there. But right down below, at Cyber Trading U, hit the follow, hit the subscribe button right here. We do this workshop once a week, every Monday, right here at noon Eastern. But otherwise, we stream live every day of the week, on weekdays at least, not the weekends, but otherwise, morning, afternoon, podcasts, workshops, webinars, you name it. If you're on just social media tuning in for the first time, hit the follow or subscribe button down below. But here in this workshop, we have the chance to go over a lot of the stocks that we ended up calling out from earlier today and answering just any questions that got sent in via email earlier on this morning. So, Genevieve, Nabil had a few of us earlier this morning, or from even the weekend at least. If you are inside our live trading room, if you have any questions, we do this once a week. Shoot me over a quick email, josh@ctutrading.com, and I'll typically answer it same day or just like message you back inside the live trading room. But otherwise, this is probably your best outlet for us to go over this as a team and for me to provide even more time on it. So let's right away go over the shiny object in the room from earlier today. It's still trying to make a move now, I guess. Broke below support as we were in class. We were in the phase one stock course just earlier today, and we had recognized this pattern of lower highs and pinning up against support. So it smashed below it live in the middle of the class. Real quick, just as this is shaking around here, when a stock breaks below big support and just tanks, what are we looking for that support to flip into? At least initially, the first time. What do we got there? Anna, Albert, Lawrence, all of us here. Yeah, resistance. So, real brief, just, we're talking live, obviously, right now, but do a little quick drawing here. Bring out my John Madden telestrator. The Giants lost like with 1 second left going into the overtime, or like at overtime. It's going to be a draw. Insane they lost. I can't believe it. Well, anywho, here, break out my telestrator. Broke below this as support. It was holding it well. Breaks below it. All right, so on the come up here, if it wants to come back up, then I'd expect resistance at first. Question is, does it just tank after that point? Or does it hold, come up again, and then blast higher later on and, resume the initial move that it had made from earlier? So that's what we're going to find out in a bit. That's like live coming up. But otherwise, though, let's break down this move from the morning hours. We say it all the time. You don't need to wake up at 4 in the morning Eastern to make your money. And I say that for anyone here on the East Coast of the United States. I say that for anyone on the West Coast even more. Hey, if you're dead asleep at that time, getting your REM sleep in at that stage, keep doing it, right? Get your shut eye. No one needs their beauty sleep more than me, at least. But it's to say that you don't need to be at your desk at 4 or 5 in the morning, like trading. If you see stocks pop or move at that time, you're probably a little more emotional than you should be. If you feel like you're missing out, you're getting the FOMO. It's like, oh my God, listen, this made for a hell of a move here afterwards. This NAOV off of support pushed back up pretty well and then made a secondary move shortly after the market opened up here. So, I just want to make that known. But otherwise, when this had popped at 8 in the morning, I know that Rich was on top of that pretty quickly. Just, we have our pre-market list at that point, but that's where you need to be a little bit quicker with scanning and building up your watch list, even once it's posted. Once the market opens, that's different. But at 8 in the morning, there's still news coming out. And right away, we had posted this pretty much like instantly. Right at 8:01 in the morning, you see the timestamp here from my colleague, Rich. Right at 8:01, right there. NAOV granted a new U.S. patent, further expanding, blah, 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 blah. All right, cool. All right, so obviously catalyst that led to the reaction. All right, so right away, not even for a cheap stock. This was $7, I guess, at first, popped up to like 12-ish, that area. Just generally speaking, if we're just even talking about the US dollar bills, folks, what price levels should constitute big support resistance? What would we start off on if we're really just thinking about the US dollar bills? Think of it that way. We're focused on where we likely have our support resistance on a trade like this. In terms of US dollar bills, what do we start off on? What's our George Washington? Want all of us to say it here in the chat board. Day, Chuck, Margaret, Bill, Douglas. Who else we got here? Ray, Yehuda, Tony, got Russell, Gerard, Octavia. 50 cents isn't a dollar, folks. Remember that. So I'm just focused on $1, that George Washington, right? I'm not focused at 50 cents. That's not a US dollar bill. So I'm speaking about that George Washington. And that's where I'm talking about 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. It's literally on this price axis here. But otherwise, as I like zoom in, or if you kind of play around with the chart, just always remember that you want to start off on just dollar bills, especially for something that pops this much. Then from there, you could focus in on your fives and tens. So obviously you have 8, 9, but obviously, even more prominent, important than that, you could assume 10. You have 11, 12, 13, and then obviously the more it goes up, well, hey, maybe 15 could be a level. You don't know, right? That's easy to say in hindsight, but that's just where I tell you at least. Start off on dollar bills. When this first starts moving, that's your first thought. It's like, ooh, dollars. Okay, maybe $5 even from there, 10, 15. But really what you need to focus in on is book map, right? You need to see where the real orders actually are. Those are assumed prices where you're likely to find those iceberg orders. And that's a great, starting point. That's a great North Star for you at first. That's like a corny saying. I know that, but I say it all the time. When you get lost in the woods, you try to find your way home. You look up top, you find the North Star, find your way home. Well, icebergs and even more than that, those dollar levels, $5 levels from there, those are our North Stars when it comes to icebergs. So even here, it just makes this initial first pop. This is tough to read. This isn't the easiest thing in the world to read. For instance, I think there's like an orange line here, one of like a bunch that pop up and disappear. Well, how much is that really worth? 2,000 shares? I'm not putting my money into a trade where a quote unquote iceberg is 2,000 shares. I need more. I got to see bigger and better than that. Even here, this was 2,600 shares. Oh, this was out here for a while, looks like. It was out here for a little bit. Still, though, I mean, I appreciate that, but I got to see more. Now, that is where the CVP column could play in part with this move, because the longer this trades, the more this is moving. Well, as it consolidates, you're going to find, prices that have more volume traded off of them compared to others. So, all right, now it's like 8:07 in the morning, 8:10 Eastern in the morning. This shook all the way down because there wasn't really much volume propelling it up anyway. So it's pretty volatile and it shakes down. But notice here, all right, there's like a $10, pretty much right at that $10 price point, pretty much. 10,000 shares. All right, at least that's a 5-digit number. At least that's more than 2,000 or 2,600, right? At least that's something. Sticks out on CVP a bit. I think that's even at like 990, right? We'll go 990, putting that through a microscope there a bit. 990. And then up top here, all right, almost 10,000. 97, 9,800, better than 2,000. We'll take it, right? Am I going to put all my eggs in these baskets here? Not all of them, just a tiny amount of them probably. You could trade small size and still make big money, especially if these levels aren't that easy to read, if you're not fully trustworthy of them just yet. But I will say, 990 and then pretty much 1150. 1150 right there. There seems to be some volume built into that price. So put a line here. 990 to complement the $10 level itself. And then the other level that we had said was what, 1150? Right there, right? And that was pretty much by the time 8:07, 8:10 in the morning. So by 8:07, 8:10 in the morning, we at least have a couple of price points to focus on here for support, possibly for resistance, possibly. And it does look to stab this price a couple of times. That pops nicely here, on this candle. Let's just use this level to begin with. Even here, put this through a fine microscope and say, all right, well, it breaks over this CVP level here at 1150, right on this green candle. All right, well, hey, real quick, folks, for all of us here in the chat room right now, just answer this for me if you can again. Just flip-flop now this time. When a stock breaks over resistance and it pops, it runs from it, actually, Don't get me wrong. This is a pretty respectable move. It's like a dollar and a half, $1.60 pop off this level. I like that. What are we looking for resistance to flip into? At least initially, right? At least the first time. So it does happen right here. This candle dips into it, back up, strong wick. I like that to begin. Now, if this is such a big level, it should hold it as support cleanly. So this first wick is good because it goes under and over. It gives you the reaction right away. But if it's not going to stay over it, that's a giant red flag. Even if it does stay over it here, it doesn't. But let's say if it does, you got to see that larger reaction. Let's see it make higher highs, right? If there's so much buying pressure right then and there, then I have no problem at least trusting the level for as long as I can and seeing if it can go. So it tries to dip into it at first, bounces, but when it comes back down, this is just a bit of a red flag when it comes down to begin with. This is where we were talking about this in our phase one. This is where we were talking about this in our phase one stock course. Almost knocked over my microphone. The difference between trading the regular market open session and here, you don't have access to your stop orders. You can't use stop market, can't use stop limit. You can't use even regular market. So just on something like this, when it comes down, screeching down to the same price again, I would be thinking like, oh shit, that's not good. And more likely than not, just get the hell out, especially when it has this thin of an order book, this big of a spread. Doesn't make it easy, right? Well, I'd rather be safe than rather be sorry, right? So it's to say, get out when it comes down to this price. If it slashes lower, and just jump ship as quickly as you can. Better that than hanging on. This thing only goes down another dollar and a half. So, are you prepared to hold on for that long? No, I don't mind taking a tiny loss. Let's just assume that you jump in from here. Let's say, oh, you jump in right here. All right, take the tiny loss, and maybe you can get in even from a lower price, the next level, the 990 to 10 right here. Or otherwise, if you miss it from there again, it comes back up, then try it when it re-steps back over 1150. But just to say, though, this is pre-market. You don't want to play with fire and hold on any longer than you should be. I know it's easy to say this moved up after, but if only we were trading in hindsight all the time, right? We would just be the greatest traders of all time, all of us. So that's just where I say I have no problem if you even take this trade here, get out on the immediate next candle because it should be holding support and it's not. But otherwise, it presents a new opportunity to buy this. And it's pretty much right off that CVP price, right off that 990. It breaks into it, goes under and over. I'm talking about even here later on because that was at 8:06, 8:07 in the morning. I'm talking about like not 8:19, 8:20 in the morning later on here. It comes just back down to it again and holds it a second time. Holds it a third time, holds it a fourth time. Look at this shit. So it just keeps holding it perfectly right before the market opens. And even when it does break below it here, well, support does properly flip into resistance on this candle. Now, if it's going to be that bearish, if it's going to resume trend so nicely here, just lower highs down, then it should just plop right back down lower. If it wants to fight this and if it wants to try and push back up and above this price, then that presents an opportunity of its own. But look what held as support later on here, right? So you're not going crazy looking for that 1150 level here to solidify. It actually presents a good opportunity coming up in pre-market at 8:26 in the morning. Even here, it doesn't make the bounce properly off of it, but a nice opportunity to look for an entry. Comes back down, unfortunately, after, so fails to hold it as support. But look what happens later on. It breaks over it as resistance. It makes a run from it after. So this is a real run. The more it's running from it, the more I'd feel confident with saying, all right, well, then finally on a pullback, it was not really holding this as well here in pre-market. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, also shame on you. Maybe fool me 3 times, shame on me then afterwards, right? So I don't mind trying to look for the same move if it didn't present itself at first. Like here, all right, well, it's blasting above this level of resistance at 1150. Real run here. Nice pop, actually. All right, so it should flip into support, and it tries. Good job, but it's failing to make that better move after. So when it finally re-breaks over it later on, once the market does open, remember, look at this level. This is just what we were focused on from the pre-market hours, right? This stood out to me here at 990. This stood out to me pretty nicely here at 1149, 1150. So it blasts over it one more time. I have no problem looking for this as support. Look what happens. Obviously, it's easy to say, but it's all about knowing your levels, finding your spots. Just want to point that out there. And this is even, before going into like the halts and all the other, intricacies of this move as it ran up. Real quick, folks, what time's reversal time? Octavia, Nabil, Grant, Uday, all of us here live. Big shout out to you, Grant. I got your text. Where's my phone? I guess I'm being a good instructor right now. My phone's not near me. But I did get your text, Grant. You killed it today. Really nice job on all your gold trades. 10:30 in the morning, right? All right. Well, hey, this is easy to say, but look what reversed a little shortly after 10:30. And again, it's better to be on the safer side of this move than sorry. So if you get out at 10:19 before the halt even, or right when this reopens from the halt, you get out just to take the money and run. You're not missing that much in relation to the move from earlier, in relation to where this started from at 7:59 a.m. Eastern time before the news even broke. So you know that every roller coaster has a top, right? Because we go over this every week. And you know that not every stock is going to be that next 1,000% mover. What's the name of the Octo trade now? They rebranded their name here. I think ORBS maybe it is. Oh yeah, there we go. Nice. Not every stock is going to go up 5,000% like the Octo trade from last week, now known as ORBS. So just going back to NAOV, hey, we saw this break support just from the regular chart, right? Just from the regular graph here. That's all this was. Support broken. Support should flip into resistance if it even wants to come up there. But just that's where I'll tell you, reversal time at 10:30-ish. Look at the long-term graph on this trade. It speaks for itself, right? Not just the gap, but I'm talking about the wicks. Look at all these other candles and days where even remotely there was some volume traded off of it. Just nice intraday pops, but disgusting intraday drops. Comes right back down same day. So if this wants to prove itself to us later on today, I'll be here for it. But just that's where I say it's better to be safe than sorry. Trust just the cyber clock. Get out ahead of time than later on. That's all. All right. Real briefly here on the social media streams. Again, if you're on Facebook Live, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, etc., be sure to hit the follow and subscribe button right down below. Just that big red button on YouTube. We're also streaming live on X on Twitter as well. So at CyberTradingU right down below there. A couple of quick updates on just swing trades. Just you see on the top right of my screen here, I always show my position manager here just for all of our traders in our room. So SMCI actually briefly. I made a call out on a trade just before we started, and I'm sitting at it on here thinking like, all right, maybe it could pull back, maybe it could try and build support from these prices. And I'm about to begin, and I see like SMCI here. The hell? I'm like, I don't leave open orders out there. So I'm like, what the hell? I forgot to close this. So I ended up clocking a small loss on SMCI right before we started. How about that? But otherwise, though, soon. It's coming back down. That's a little unfortunate. This was off to a red hot start, at least early on this morning. This also reversed, loosely speaking, around 10:30. But otherwise, this has been built as a swing trade. So we've been talking about this for a couple of weeks now. At this stage now, at this point, we're trying to see support develop right around 14, 15-ish, kind of right in this area. Just from volume, I went over that thesis just from the last week or so. It's been doing great from Wednesday, Thursday of last week. I definitely would like to see a rebound today because if we just keep with this wick here, that's a little iffy. If we just go into tomorrow with this up wick, hopefully we just pop right back on up. So I'm just going to stay into the trade, of course. Nothing too concerning about it. It's been doing really well for us since we got in from 1270. We're up about 14% on that trade. Bumble, BMBL, this is actually at the high of the day right now, technically. It's got a good order book here. I like that. This could be a great day trade for students over time. I'm not really calling this out much. I mentioned this the second I got in. I wrote this to all of our students inside our live trading room. This was more speculative, and I took this from a trader that I follow online on X, on Twitter myself. And just to say, at least, it's been kind of riding this downtrend over time historically. So I've just been seeing it base out going into the end of last year, this year, and it was a more speculative entry, but it's been paying off pretty well. Up almost $1 on that trade right now, almost up about 16%. Now, lastly, though, this SGN, this is Fausto's pet project, and he got me into this trade. So, Fausto doesn't trade every one of my call outs, and I don't trade every one of his call outs, right? We can only do so much as humans. As human beings, we all have two hands, two eyes, got a brain in between there, and mine's not that big. But just to say that, hey, we're not going to be able to do everything at once. So I remember when he killed it on Archer at the end of last year, I missed out on that. I got in on Archer when he was calling it back out into the end of April. I was riding that with him really well. SGN's been his pet project since like pretty much the beginning of this calendar year. He's friends with the CEO. There's some sort of deal happening in the imminent future, and that's public information. But just to say, though, that it was moving up from the end of last week, and he got me in on this trade from 180. So, Fausto's move here, but I'm riding it with him on this one. But that's pretty much my swing trades that I'm working with, at least. Now, what I want to do is go into the emails that we got from just students. So let me just actually see this briefly here. Oh, you know what? Let me go to this first, just because it's in relation to that, in relation to my swing trades, and I didn't want to leave it stranded. We're about to go into the inbox right now, but I just see from John here. When did you get into Soon? I got into Soon like a week and a half, 2 weeks ago. It was from this red candle here. I took a loss at first because, really briefly, I gave my thesis on this like a week or two back, but at first I wanted this resistance to flip into support. And I was saying that here because it was re-breaking over. So I was thinking, all right, smashed over here. I didn't hold it as support here where it probably should have. I was thinking it would do a better job at first. So I took a loss initially from 1350. Then at the right away when I took that loss, I was saying like, all right, well, maybe like if it just tanks back down to the next key level, if we can get a much lower price by the afternoon, that would be like cool. I wasn't expecting that. That actually happened. It came scorching back down right here, right? This red candle. So same day where I took the loss, I actually got back in on the damn trade right off the 1270 right here. Support built from the end of last year. We've been riding it out since. So that's what happened on the Soon trade. That was the trigger essentially on that, John. All right. Got a bunch of emails kicking in right now as we're talking. All right. No, but seriously, let's get to some questions that came in, even from the end of last week. So this came in from one of our new students or new members here, Nabil. And Nabil, I hope that you've been enjoying your time with us. I see that you're here pretty much nearly every day, if not, every week otherwise. So I really appreciate your attendance, your participation with us here. Hope you're learning a lot. Hope you're, having fun at least. Otherwise making money, right? That's what matters most. But he'd sent over some pictures for this. He's saying, hi Josh, please would you can you explain this to me on the stock CHEK? On the daily chart, it shows the price 75 cents on the 1 minute. On the daily chart for Nabil, it showed CHEK trading at 75 cents, but on his 1 minute chart, it showed the price 227. Why does this happen pretty much? And I have the answer for him here. So just to let you know, CHEK popped on Friday, but it popped at 4:39 p.m., right? So remember that time, 4:39 p.m. The market closes at 4 p.m. every day. So what the daily chart is factoring in, Nabil, is that it's factoring in all of the trading and data and volume and activity from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m., right? That's what the daily chart's doing. So when stock pops at 4:39 p.m. from 75 to 220, the daily chart won't reflect that until the next trading day, until right now, as you can see. So, that's just where you have the big gap in activity from the close on Friday going into the open today, Monday, September 15th. Now, that is shown on the daily chart. That is shown on the weekly chart. It is not shown on the monthly chart because we're in the middle of this month. Now, if that gap happens on August 30th into September 1st, you'd see a gap on the monthly chart even. But from Friday into Monday, you see that there on the weekly, you see that there on the daily, but on an intraday chart, like a 1 minute graph, a 5 minute graph, a 10 minute, 15-minute graph, it will show the after hours activity. It will show the pre-market activity there. Now, just to let all of our students know, keep in mind, we have a whole class that I teach gaps on. Just last month, we went over it in August. So it was phase two, lesson number 7, gaps. It should be plural, not just one. We're not just using one gap there, guy. No, but gaps, squeezes, and bounces. So that whole class, I look to go over everything with that daily chart, the weekly chart, the historical graph, and how you can look to try and trade gap fills there. All right. So, let me know if there's any follow ups you have there, Nabil, on that. So I'm more than happy to help you out on the side inside our live trading room there. Randy, looking forward to speaking with you tomorrow, my friend. Appreciate you being flexible with your time. Question from Catherine. Catherine, or Kate, I should say, my apologies. Kate with a question that came in early this morning. She was asking, she has questions around the best platform to trade on. Kate has Schwab and another one. Not sure if Schwab is adequate. All right. So, Kate, if you're here with us right now, can you just tell me what was the other platform that you have? What's that other one? Just interested. Schwab's awesome. Listen, I like Schwab, right? I don't personally use Schwab myself, so I'm sure that members here will give you their firsthand experience, whether it's good or bad. Either way, those are people in those shoes dealing with the platform on a day-to-day basis. Now, Schwab has their Street Smart Edge platform, and then since they merged slash bought out, did whatever you want to call it with TD Thinkorswim, there's the Thinkorswim platform right through Schwab. So I find that both are really good, but keep in mind the key is order execution. The key is at least having all of the tools that we teach you about in class. So, hey, if your platform offers extended buy and sell data like I have on TradeStation, that's awesome. For instance, interactive brokers, I love them. Not only are they great for other reasons, but they have a program on their platform called the Book Trader. It's basically level 3. Ipso facto, it's level 3, right? It's our slang. But Thinkorswim, they have Bookmap, which is what we nickname level 4, integrated onto their platform. Makes them an awesome platform for what we do. Schwab, they're very reliable. I've never really had major issues for any students using Street Smart Edge when it comes to their trading. But I would tell you though that TradeStation's an excellent platform here, right? TradeStation's our friends. We partner with them on a bunch of things here. I love TradeStation. The key is, truthfully, as a trader, as long as the platform has live data, not delayed, live real-time buy and sell data, meaning at the minimum level 2 in time and sales, if not level 3, then otherwise just order execution, making sure that your orders get filled as quickly as they could be, or otherwise that there's no major delays in getting your order filled. If you're finding that your order is taking longer to get filled, maybe it's not even a platform issue. That could be an internet issue. That could be a bandwidth issue, whatever it may be. That's where you talk to Rich about that. But yeah, I mean, hey, let me know what you think, students. What you find as a reliable trading platform, what you tend to do well on yourself. I know that Robinhood's a very good trading platform now. They've built their platform into a pretty good product of late. I know that for a fact. Webull, I personally use Webull for my options. So, I don't use them for my stock trading. I already have my trading account with TradeStation for that, but I personally use Webull for options. Nabil says the customer service is amazing. No wait time on Thinkorswim. There you go. And you know what? A lot of these companies lately, they've been just like catching on. It's like common sense. It's like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. A lot of these companies have been installing the callback feature, right? So if like there is a wait, right, Nabil, it might be like, all right, well, we can call you back in 10 minutes. So you don't need to be on like hold with the elevator music, right? So that makes a pretty smart thing. But at least that's good to hear, though, from a user like Nabil here says, the customer service is amazing there from Thinkorswim. Lauren says, Thinkorswim every day he uses. Yeah. Now, again, if you have Street Smart Edge and you like them, you're finding it easy to trade off of Street Smart Edge platform, then stick with that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? Less is always more. I always find that, so traders always try and like get like the itch, like itching, like try and find the next big thing that could help them out. If it's not broke, don't fix it. So if you're liking what you're using with your trading, hey, it's always good to have a curious mind, but it could be unhealthy to like try and add this, try and add that, this, that. So again, just to mention, if you like interactive brokers and nothing's wrong with them, then I wouldn't really be too itchy to try and change things, right? If you have a strategy that's making you money consistently, I wouldn't try and look for the next revolutionary thing to add on top of that. There's not as much a need for that. If you're a break-even trader and you're not making, really money at all, you're not losing money, but you're not making money, I'd say that something's got to change. Now that's just in relation to if it's not broke, don't fix it. So just even scaling back in that towards just like talking about platforms and talking about just Thinkorswim versus TradeStation versus Webull, whatever it is. Now, there are some platforms that I'll mention privately. I don't want to like trash any companies, but there are companies I'll tell you like, probably not the best. What I will say is if you're using an offshore broker, there's probably a reason that you chose that, and I'd say it's probably not a good reason. So, offshore brokers are not reliable. Prop firms, I'd say, are very shady. I've seen too many of them on social media, get imploded for just controversy and just illegal activity. No names I mentioned, but that's a vague comment. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, if you're working on a mainstream platform broker, you're pretty much in the right hands to begin. Chuck saying, I've been using Thinkorswim for over 20 years. Love the quick service and the included book map. There you go. Chuck just right now clocking out on a trade just here. So he's tuning in. And yeah, this APLD is a nice move, Chuck. So, just going back towards just what we focus on as far as a tradable stock, this APLD popped this morning. It dropped back down. So that was a little iffy. But we were focused on this move throughout the morning today. And it made for a good entry, built with higher lows. Obviously, this has been on a tear. We've been calling this out for the last month and a half, 2 months really here. So both as a day trade and a swing trade. Once it broke over the top that we had here back from 2023, just kind of this area, just the more it's stabbing over, you should be expecting that better move. So this finally broke out pretty nicely this morning. I think it was in relation to news on CoreWeave, right? If I'm not mistaken. I think they kind of popped in sympathy in relation to the CoreWeave move. So, you know what? Whether you got Thinkorswim, whether you got TradeStation, whatever it is, as long as you know where the orders are, it makes it a lot easier for you to dictate, should I get in? Should I not get in? If you should get in, where should you get in and when? So let's find out where the smart money was trading here on the stock. Well, it's kind of tough because there was like one order here early in the morning before news broke. This was just kind of inching up, 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 up. We had about 37,000 shares here on the offer at 1880. Blasted way above it right away here just when the news broke to begin with. Now, what's interesting about that is look what became support. 1880 was resistance here in pre-market. Big fat red line there, 37,000 plus shares. Well, looks like right on the kisser. Actually made my famed under and over move, didn't it? Didn't it? Broke under that by what, a penny or two? 2 pennies? Then right back over. Perfect move. So this is everything that you want to see in a setup. Stock popped to begin with, so you had time, unless if you were twiddling your thumbs or away from your desk and you were getting to your desk at 9:29 in the morning, you had time to identify like, all right, well, where was support resistance on APLD? Right here. Now, after that, let me ask our students, after the 1880 price, what's our next big resistance on APLD using this entire window as this moved up, 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 and then back down a bit? What's our next big level after the price 1880? Want all of us to answer, and I just say this generally, it's the psychology of being a student in class. I know this because I've been there, right? Don't wait for other students to answer to try and cling on, like wait to see what the group does and then answer yourself to like make, trust me, use your own vision. I want everyone to answer themselves. Give everyone a couple more seconds there at least inside our trading room and on social media there too. But I will say the answer is 20. The answer is 20 for Two reasons. It sticks out pretty simply, at least for me. So when I take a look at this heat map right here, big fat orange line, just like there was one at 18 bucks, there's one at 20. Pretty simple. Now, otherwise, though, CVP, notice how that sticks out a lot more compared to everything else, right? This spike of volume that got filled, well, it's a lot larger than everything else. So you got 1880, you got 20. I'm not focused anywhere else on this. Everything else is microscopic little BS. Now, after the market opens, then we'll see other orders pop up. We'll get the opening print, 357,000 shares at 1911. That becomes a level. We get new resistance at 2040. That becomes a level. That definitely is a level. So, yes, there are new levels that will pop up after the market opens, but at least if I'm looking at this graph here, the way it looks here, I'm looking at 1880 for a potential bounce. Then over time to see if we can get this up closer to the resistance at 20. If not 20, then maybe higher, of course, but should be trading within this range. Now, one price we kind of mentioned was the opening print right here, big dot, big spike of volume right there at 930, right at that price, $19.10, 311, 1911. But 357,000 shares, right? Sounds like a lot larger than 59,700. It seems a hell of a lot larger than 37,600 here. So 1910 becomes a key level, or 1911 becomes a key level for after the market opens. After 9:30, we wait the first 5 minutes. Ding, ding, ding. We wait. But we'll try and look to trade a stock after that point. So that's just where I'll point out that, hey, it shook down here first. This was your true bottom. Then from there, the more it's knocking and knocking on that opening print door, well, it leads to the potential breakout over it. So nice breakout above 1911 here, from 1911 up to 1940. That's a nice move. It's not like the largest breakout we've ever seen, but that's not just the tiny little nip of the level. All right, well, one more time, folks, for everyone out there, even the people out there in the third row out there. No, but when a stock breaks over resistance and it's moving off of it, it's running off of it, what are we expecting that resistance to flip into? What are we expecting to happen at 1880? What are we expecting to happen at 1911? Broke over resistance and ran. So what are we looking for that level to flip back into? Got all of us here saying support, absolutely, like it did here, right? Yes, this is called seeing support hold, because it broke under it, back over it, triggers entry, and yes, it nipped under it by like a couple more pennies after. But I'm not really seeing this as like massive support breaking. It's not like this is like breaking below 19. It's not like it's coming down to 1880 immediately. It's chipping around it a bit. A little uncomfortable seeing it kind of shake down to 1907, 1906, but I'm not overtly like rip my hair out. Like, as long as this is still containing over 1911 in the coming minute, I'll be pretty happy about it. So ended up building back up. It's easy to say that once it built support here, it looks like it made a pretty big move shortly after, right? So that's basically the APLD trade in a nutshell from this morning's pop, or news that came out. This was actually in sympathy to CoreWeave. When news came out on CoreWeave, APLD pretty much popped at the same time. All right, folks, let's get back to the email machine here, because I kind of went off course for a second here. So Genevieve, question that came in from earlier this morning. Appreciate you, Genevieve, as always, joining our room here pretty much every day. If not every day, it's most days, right? So for everyone here that's like that, I appreciate you coming in here and spending your time with Fausto, myself, Rich. But the more that you're here, even when you're not trading, as long as you're focused on our call outs, like the real meat and potatoes of what we're doing in the chat, a lot of what we post in the chat is a lot of rah-rah, like just chit-chat commentary. I love that. But for students here that are spending their time following the call outs that Fausto, myself, Rich are calling out to you, studying those moves and saying, oh, that's right, Josh mentioned that 300,000 share seller. Oh yeah, Rich called out that all-time high earlier on the stock, IONQ, whatever it is. that will help you develop into an excellent trader. And I see students just like Genevieve pretty much here every day doing just that. So Genevieve is asking, she keeps getting caught in this. She gets into trades earlier than 10:30 in the morning, and they're doing well. And they all start losing their momentum right at 10:30 or around there, and kind of asking, what do you do at reversal time? How do you get through that? Do you sell everything before 10:30 and then wait until the afternoon? Short answer, if like the quick elevator pitch answer, yeah. Now, there's more to it than that, though. There's more to it than that. Okay. APLD, great example. Catch the bottom here at 1880, or if you catch the flip here into support off the opening print, goes up. All right. Well, I know it moved up higher later on, but let's just assume you're thinking around 10:30 is when this could look to top, and you might look to just take profits around 10:30, give or take 15 minutes. So even here is a little skeptical, but it built support, moved up. And let's say you're even a little after 10:30, I reckon here, but you have a choice. It's to say, how much am I up or down already on my day? Is Genevieve the trader? Is Josh the trader? Is Michael the trader? Am I making money right now? Am I like having to scratch and claw my way back? Am I in the red? If I'm in the red and I have to scratch and claw my way to get back to break even, you best believe I'm selling quick. You best believe I'm following Cyberclock and just trying to get out sooner rather than later. If you've already made your day's pay, or if you're well on your way there and you know that you're not going to lose money by death by 1,000 paper cuts, you're not going to jump into like 1,000 other trades coming up and like take tiny losses and bleed out, then you have the chance to try and ride a wave like this over time. The key is the stock flipping the next resistance into support? So even here, when it moves up and off of the 1911 goes up, I mean, again, we can cut this pie a lot of different ways, but the more it's kind of moving off that 1911, and so it moves up here, there isn't anything in between here that looks great. But where you see this orange line here, and it was only out there for a cup of coffee, but looks like it got hit. Looks like it got hit at 1930. If it moves up higher, then maybe as long as it stays over that, you're in good shape. I don't make these rules up. I just follow them. So just to tell you, at least, even here, like we had said, that 1930-ish, not that great, but listen, it's still kind of held over it, pushed back up higher. So something like that will keep you into a trade as long as the stock is doing what we need it to do. There's been plenty of trades where, hey, I've already made my money on the morning, and this is just for academics. This is just to build on top even further. And the stock doesn't do what I want it to do, and I waste like a 45-cent profit and I go break even. I don't beat myself up nearly as much about that compared to losing that unrealized profit when my P&L is at zero, or my P&L is at like $50 on the day. When I'm at like nothing, that's where I'll get upset about wasting unrealized profit. But once I'm already there, I'm not trying to give everything back like I'm Oprah. But if the stock doesn't do what I need it to do, and if it breaks below 1930, and all right, then I'll make a little less on the trade compared to, if I'd gotten out here, whatever it is. When you do your chores, then you can go outside and play. When you make your day's pay, or you're well on your way there, I don't need to be Mr. Perfect, or Genevieve doesn't need to be Mrs. Perfect here in this case to make money, right? So I'd rather trust the Cyberclock if I'm not where I want to be yet on the morning, if I'm in the red clawing my way back. But even if I'm where I want to be, I still need to see the stock flip resistance into support. Said there, I said the 1930s. So, did a good job right there. Now, that's just one quick shoot example. But if we turn over to NAOV, now on the flip side, with not just how much you are up on the day, Genevieve, and for everyone here, but it's also a matter of how much the stock is up percentage-wise. And this is where, and I say this with no one in mind, just say this like as an out loud comment, and I say this with myself actually included here. We don't want to get spoiled because of what we saw last week. We don't want to get spoiled like, CWD popped up 1,000% that day. Well, look at where it's at now. You know what I mean? Uh, what was it? The OBTS, whatever the Octo trade turned into, ORBS, was that it? Look at where it's at now, right? So for as much as we like riding these trades on the way up and they go up, oh, 500, 1,000, 5,000%, that's such an anomaly. That's so rare to have happen, right? So I got to make sure we have the right expectations when you join our live trading room. You probably see a few stocks. Not even that. I'll make it better. Probably see several stocks, if not on one hand, then maybe two, that can make a 100% move across a week. That's what you should expect when you join our live trading room each and every week. A handful or two of stocks that can move up 100+%. To have the stocks that we had last week, Octo, CWD, all those trades go crazy, that is so rare. I brought this up last week here. It's like, what happens if you lose on Powerball? Do you get upset about like losing Powerball, one in, 10 million or 100 million shot of winning, however much it is? That's just where, you got to pick and choose your battles. So for NAOV, which was up 100+% earlier this morning, that's still a lot. Don't think that this is automatically going to be the 5,000% mover, 1,000% mover, or let alone even 500% mover. If this is failing to make the higher high afterwards, it's more likely to make a lower low after, right? So if you're watching this trade and still pushing up, that's great. We're at 10:30 at this point. So I have no problem taking my money and running. And then if the stock wants to make another move later on, cool. I mean, unless if you're stepping away from your desk and you have things to do, right? Which that happens. We're all traders. It's a part-time job. Health, family, travel, work, fun, you name it. If you got somewhere to go, then you might miss the move. But listen, if this stock wants to prove itself to us, otherwise, I'm here to see it. I'll be there for it. If this wanted to hold support and run back up higher, then we would call it out. It didn't do that. We're not going to give this the light of day here now at this point, it seems. Maybe later, if this wants to make a Hail Mary pop back over this price, I'll call it out, but I'm not expecting it. Now, I say that because, well, this stock already made a big move off of big volume and it's got a low float. It already reversed at 10:30, which is what we expect. Look at what happened previously here. This thing's been a piece of garbage for quite some time. So look at what it's doing now. It's not a surprise. That's just where to go back towards the morning and like 10:30 reversal time. Probably better to be safe than sorry. Probably better to get out around that 10:30. And if it wants to prove itself to us, then we'll be here to see it. We'll be there for that. All right. Give me a quick sec here, folks. Just rounding up the emails here before we finish up. It's about 12:53. We're going to finish up this workshop in just a few minutes. Checking spam, checking junk sometimes. Every now and then you get a couple meetings in here. I'm getting littered with so much junk now. I don't know what's going on here, so I'm not going to take much time to try and go through this. All right, folks, let me know if you got any other last-second questions, thoughts, comments, anything here just for us here in this workshop. Let me know, especially those of us on social media, Facebook Live, LinkedIn, etc., Twitter, X, YouTube, right down below at Cyber Trading U. We do this live workshop every Monday afternoon, 12 o'clock Eastern, I reckon 9 o'clock Pacific. But otherwise, let me know if you have any other questions for myself here. Chuck saying OKLO today is a good example of under and over $90.30, and then it runs up again. Yeah, nice move during when we were in class, I guess, here, pushing up higher. I was looking at this going into the open or like right before the market opened up. Actually, transparently enough, I was more focused on SMR, and you know that because I just made this call out here right before we started this workshop. Said looking for SMR to make a bounce from 36.40, but it needs to go under and over first for an entry. So, Chuck, no surprise that your OKLO is killing it today. It's a great chart. And, hoping that does well for the afternoon for you. Damn it, I wanted this entry so bad. It's all right, folks. I mean, for all the trades I take, I miss probably 100 times that. Not only on the stocks that I'm thinking about, but what about the stocks I'm not thinking about? What about something like Robinhood that literally just popped up in my head right now, this very second? Well, it's made a hell of a pop, hell of a move. So you're going to miss 100 times, 1,000 times more than what you're taking. You just got to bite your tongue and just say, shit. Real quick here from Chuck talking to Grant there briefly, just a couple of chats between students, I reckon, but I think that just about wraps it up here, folks. All right, folks, I'll tell you what, I think you've heard enough of me here so far this morning. I was just in class with probably about 70% of us here right now. You jump in from class right into Traders Talk with me here. You've probably heard enough from me. I'll tell you what, the more I'm talking, I'm missing a couple of these trades myself. So we're going to jump off right here. We're going to trade the market going into the afternoon coming up. We do have our next class at 3 o'clock Eastern later on today. So if you're a bronze level student or up, bronze, silver, gold, platinum, diamond, you know who you are. You got access to our classes later on today. Looking forward to working with you there. And then for all of us on YouTube, Facebook Live, etc., got a big week, got a big couple weeks ahead here, actually, in fact. So I know that Fausto will be on Metastock tomorrow. Great, platform Metastock. Jeff Gibby, we love them, and we've had them on our platform numerous times. So I know that Fausto is doing some big multi-speaker event at Metastock tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Otherwise, though, we have our live workshop here just each and every Thursday. So if you wanted to join that, just make sure to follow and subscribe right down below, just on YouTube, X, Facebook Live, etc. Right there, not that one, this one. Scan that QR code with your phone, with your camera, just to get access to our next live workshop coming up on Thursday. And then even after that, we have our big multi-speaker event, our Cyber Expo event, I think coming up the week after this. So big week here at CTU. If you wanted to be more in the know, more in tune with our week-to-week offerings, again, scan that QR code to get yourself registered. If you wanted to jump the queue and join us directly inside our live trading room, just go right down to the link scrolling down below on the bottom in blue, as I always like to say, a lot of alliteration there, but ctu.co/trial, get you live access to our room there for a week-long membership. But Wendy, Bill, Uday, Grant, Margaret, Lawrence, all of us just here right now. Again, stay tuned. We'll be back later on this afternoon for you.